So I'm starting to take the bolts that hold the bumper cover off, and just like in the front, you can loosen it so far it starts to tighten up. If it's tightening up, it's going to break if you continue. So the best way is to back it off, get some of the crud out of the threads, continue to loosen it, back it off, and eventually you get it to the point where it'll come off. And be patient in doing it. You can avoid breaking the bolts. If you're not, I guarantee you're going to break bolts. I'm hoping that the ones that are up higher and less exposed to rain and such. I know this car's been out in the rain. I don't think it's been out in the snow, but I'm hoping that the ones that are up on the top come off a lot easier. There are 4 on each side of the fender. There's 1, 2, 3, one away at the top. I also have brought with me from the from my garage a short stubby 3/8 inch ratcheting wrench, so that when I get up to the top where it's a little harder to reach, maybe I'll have to use that wrench instead of the longer one. The longer one's just a little easier to handle. So for the next hour, 2, 3, whatever it takes, I'm going to be trying to take off those bolts. And doing a quick look at the rear bumper, it appears that disconnecting the lights that are embedded into the bumper is going to be best done by taking off the taillight lens. And I think from the back it looks like you'll be able to unscrew the socket and pull it out and disconnect the wires. So I'll check back in whenever I'm doing that part of the job. So I decided that I've got 4 of the nuts off already, and I decided that I'd give myself a little more headroom and lower the lift by taking off this top side of the spare tire carrier. There's 2 bolts here and 2 here that hold a bracket on, that hold the retainer screw that held the spare tire carrier up. And this is kind of neat because it won't come down. It's resting on the differential. And I got too long of an extension. I can't get a straight shot at that. I frequently use long extensions because it gets the ratchet away from any obstructions, and it makes it easier to turn. So again, those are different size socket than the other ones. The other ones were half, these are 9/16. So with that, you can get a nice big turn on the bolt. A lot of times I'm going to get my head out of the way before this comes down, even though it's light. there's no point in having it hit me in the head when it comes down. A little bit of extra headroom. Now I can lower the lift a little bit, and it'll be easier to reach up in and get those other bolts. While I'm under here on the driver's side, the left side, there's a nut that holds some ground wires. It also holds a ground for the radio antenna. I'm going to take that out so that it doesn't get forgotten and ripped off when we go to do it, the removal of the body from the frame. I had soaked that, the 3/8 inch bolt there, I had been soaking it with PD Blaster for a couple days so that it would come off. And as usual, I am going to put the bolt back in where it came from. There's also a little washer. One of those washers that gets you a grip on it. I guess to make a better ground in this case. I put that back in there so I know where it came from. Give it just one little twist so that it doesn't fall out. So I got the 4 nuts off on each side of this, and as long as that took me, and as hard as it's going to be to actually get up in here to do the ones that hold the top of the bumper on, I'm actually contemplating just breaking them off and spending 40 bucks or so to get new clips if I can't repair the strip that's behind there. Obviously, if you have an older, more valuable car that you want to keep original, maybe it's worth your while to spend the time taking it off and keeping it original. But this car isn't original, and I have no intention of making it original. So I think what I'm going to do, if they don't come off easily, and I don't expect they will, is just break them off and get it off quicker. I'm retired, but my time is still worth something. So taking out the license plate light now, because before this comes off, all the wiring to this has to be removed. And again, once I get this off, these screws will go back into that license plate light bracket so that I know where they came from. The other thing I'm contemplating, although I'm not sure I'm going to do it because I think there's other things I'd rather put into this car for $400 or $500. I'm thinking about whether I ought to replace this bumper. The paint's all cracked on it. These things do get brittle with age. My 74 bumper, front bumper, just kind of fell apart. So that'll be something I'll have to think about when it's going back together at least. Well, I took the first nut off, and the first nut came off without incident. And I didn't even have to reverse it to clear the crud out of the threads at all. So it's not going to want to be broken off, so if it comes off like that. So here we go with nut number 2. Although I gotta say, I looked under there and all those studs looked like they were pretty rusty. Oh, there you go. That one's off, broken off. So I'm going to take them off that way. If they come off, they come off. If they don't, then I will either figure a way to repair that rail or I will buy new clips. They have 2 options. One of them is the continuous rail like it's in there now. The other option is individual clips that you put in just at the holes. So you'd have, there's 10 holes there. You'd have 10 clips going across. And who knows, depending on what I see when I take that off, if I can repair that, I will. If I can't, there's always an option of, I might actually be able to make those clips easily with a few bolts and a couple of pieces of steel. We'll see when we get there. So I was running into some wires that were in my way in the back here trying to get to one of those studs. So I unscrewed the tail light, and to my surprise the whole unit comes out, and I should be able to just disconnect the light bulb from the back side here by turning it. It's not that easy. Should just turn. It would have been impossible to get that out from the back side the way it's in there. I'm going to actually lower the lift and give myself a better angle to work on it, but I will let you know what takes it out. I don't see any clips or anything there, so I'm going to try to grab it with a pair of channel locks and turn it. Maybe I just don't have the hand strength. There you go. It's just been in there for 40 some years, and takes a little more strength in your hands than I have. But now I'll be able to, I believe, pop this behind here and take it out of my way and get at that nut a little better. So what I can see here now is these are the bolts that I thought you could take off from the back to take that whole unit out, and These are Phillips head screws in here. So taking them out from the outside is the way to go. So I've got the second light out, and actually the bulb came out of the socket pretty easily on that one. So the reason I took it out is that wire is still in my way for a bolt. It's about here, and it's clipped onto a bracket up on this bolt here. So if I take that one off first, I should be able to drop that wire further down. Now, that I am going to try a 1/4-inch ratchet with a deep socket on it, because the way that bracket is, and I'll show you it once I get it out, it's going to prevent a flat wrench like this from fitting on it. So we're going to try this with a different tool. So I've got the wire harness down, at least on the one side. It's disconnected on both sides. It's over top of a bracket back there. I just have to pull it through. But I wanted to show you, this was on the inside corner of the bumper, and the screw went in like that. Actually, it was a stud with a nut on the end. So it was somewhat like that on the end, and you couldn't get this kind of a wrench on it because this was in the way. That's why those two end ones, the 1/4-inch ratchet with a 3/8 socket, was able to fit on it, and in this case break it off as opposed to remove it. I've got one or two more of those studs to take off, and then we'll be taking these 3 bolts out, which I believe will be all that's holding the bumper on. We're down to the last 3 bolts, I believe, that are holding the bumper on. They are 3/8 inch, and I'm using a deep socket with a 3-inch extension because the wrench will not clear and give you a good swing if you try to use a smaller, shorter arrangement there. I think this bumper has been repainted. Actually, I know it has. There was overspray on the light sockets. That's why I couldn't take them off by hand. The 2 that were on the end, which are just the tail lights and turn signals, not the backup lights, they didn't seem to have spray where it was sticking. This and these grooves here seem to stick pretty good, and I needed to use the channel locks in order to get that off. The bumper wasn't coming away from the body easily, even at the top, with all the studs broken off. And I think I only got 2 or 3 that did not break, but it was a whole lot quicker to just break them off than to try to back them out slowly and get those threads, the gunk out of the threads so that they wouldn't snap. I'm betting that in a body shop, if you took this car in, they just break them all off and replace them and charge you for them. But it probably would be cheaper than the labor. See what happens here. I wonder if this might be somewhat stuck on with the paint as well. I got the right side a little bit loose, but the top is still tight. Just before I pull too hard, I better check and make sure I didn't miss a bolt. There is one missing, one I missed right there. Right about there. It's actually the one I took the wiring harness out so I could get to it, and then I never did it. I think that's all of them. This side came off a little bit, but not too much. Okay, so I was feeling around the back of these, and it turns out that these brackets, which I could see the screws, the back end of the screws from the other side, they are, it appears, bolted to some brackets that make up the bumper. So I'm going to have to use a very large Phillips screwdriver and get those out of there. So these brackets sit in there like that with large, I'm sorry, these are behind. So they are behind there. They're screwed on with these large Phillips head screws. Once you get those off, the bumper's moving more. I still have one bolt here because I don't want the bumper to fall off when I get everything out. So I'm going to leave it loosely connected just to support the bumper. Not very heavy, but it's awkward. So I'm going to go to the other side and take those off, and the bumper should come off, I think. Well, just that one last screw to take off that I left in to make sure it didn't fall off, and I think we're ready for the great reveal. There we are. At last. No wonder I couldn't get that out of there. Get the ball back. So that top row, 10 bolts. 7 of them broke. Only 3 that remained intact. On the sides, one side had 3 remained intact out of 4, and the other side had 2. So, back up to show you one more thing. Well, let's see if we can get this out of here. So right now, this is just over top of one of the braces of the bumper. We're going to thread that out of the way. Hopefully I'll be able to show you right here. There was one on each side. Clip that held that wiring harness into a hole back here somewhere, maybe up here. I believe it was this hole right here. There was this little clip here. I was able to reach up there with a pair of long needle nose pliers and squeeze that clip in and pull it out. The other side, one of the tabs on it was broken off, so it came out easily. I didn't even need to use a tool. So I am going to finish snaking this wire up and out of the way. There's a third clip that wasn't attached. I didn't pull it off of anything, so maybe it wasn't attached. But I had taken, this is the side marker light on the passenger side. I had taken that out earlier whenever I was taking off the bolts that held that side. On the passenger side, the bolts that held this. It was kind of in my way, so I took it out. So now all that is out of the way. I'll be tying it up to the body somehow for when I remove the body from the chassis, but as of right this minute, I think that I've got everything that's on the bottom of the car except for the actual body mount bolts disconnected. Now, I say that, but when actually what I do, I don't raise the body off the car. I support the body on the rafters and lower the chassis out from underneath it. But as I do that, I'll do that very slowly to make sure that I haven't missed anything. But I think I'm going to call it a day. The next video you'll see, I'll be working in the engine compartment, probably starting with the radiator, although I may change that because I may take some things off first to make it easier to get the radiator out. I don't regret at all breaking off those bolts. I'll I can't imagine how long that would have taken if I had tried to back those off every time they started getting tight. And as you saw, even on the side ones, when I was backing off when I thought they were getting tight, I broke 3 bolts anyway, and I didn't think I was putting much pressure on them. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. So I was cleaning up, and this is one of the reinforcements in the back that has the studs in it that were breaking off. And if you noticed, I've already got one of them out. And what I found in there, if I can find a screw like this, it's a tiny carriage bolt. Get the glove off so you can see it against my hand better than the glove. It's a tiny carriage bolt. By carriage bolt, I mean right at the base of the head is a square the nut is square, and if you look at the hole in the bracket, it's square as well. So if I can find carriage bolts with that correct size of thread, length, and the carriage bolt head, these will be easy to repair because I just put that on a vise, supported it here and here, took a hammer and just tapped it out. So it looks like those are repairable.